ancient prehistoric cave paintings, the longest underwater cave in all of Southeast Asia, and the remains of a near-extinct endemic creature. Let's debrief the final 3 episodes of the Caves of Sulawesi series. This is the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, and I'm your host, scuba instructor trainer and underwater filmmaker Nick de Rooter. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, the companion to the DiveSAGA YouTube channel, where we debrief the episodes, dive a little bit into the behind the scenes, give some extra information, and answer some of the viewer comments. That's what we're going to do today. On our previous episode of the DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast, we discussed the first 4 episodes of the Caves of Sulawesi. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, you might want to do that first and then listen to this one right after. I first want to give a little shout out to our sponsor of this episode, which is In-Depth Magazine. In-Depth isn't about gear hype or clickbait, it's about real dive stories, real explorers, and real underwater science. And if you enjoy the DiveSAGA channel and this podcast, then you'll probably love the kind of long-form articles and photography that they publish. You can find In-Depth Magazine online or in print, and by supporting them, you're helping keep serious dive journalism alive. So surf to www.indepthmag.com and start reading and learning for free today. I first off want to say that I'm super happy with everybody's enthusiasm regarding the Caves of Sulawesi series. It is actually the most successful series on the DiveSAGA YouTube channel so far. I've been trying to grow this channel for years, and I've certainly been stepping up the production quality, but whenever people like a product, that obviously fills my heart with joy. We have over 150,000 views on the 7 episodes collectively, which are pretty high numbers for the channel. We even had one breakout episode, the Moko Morete episode, the blue sinkhole in the jungle, gathered 75,000 views to date, which is really high. Lots of Indonesian viewers. Makes me really happy that people recognize their home country, that they are proud, and that they recognize Chacha, our local cave diving guide. Amazing guy. He really made these 7 episodes work, and so it's cool to see that people tuned in to cheer for him. A lot of viewers left really nice comments, and that's super earned because he did an amazing job helping me create this series. By the way, guys, for those of you who are curious into the making of and specifically the filming and lighting techniques, this coming Thursday, I'm releasing an 8 bonus episode about the cinematography of the Caves of Sulawesi, and I'll be discussing a little bit more which cameras were used, how certain shots were created, the lighting plans, and the general workflow. So if you're into that kind of thing, absolutely tune in. And some big news this summer, we are releasing a DiveSAGA Masterclass. So for those who are truly interested in learning underwater cinematography and underwater storytelling, I have an amazing 6-part, 8-hour course coming up that can be completely done from the comfort of your home at your own pace. It's mostly video and quiz based, and goes very in depth from the inception of the story to the shooting, the lighting, the safety, the editing, and the publishing and promoting of your own underwater adventures. I will put a link below so you can register on the waiting list. That also gives me a way to gauge the general interest for this DiveSAGA Masterclass. Our 5th episode of the Caves of Sulawesi was a little different because we actually covered 2 different locations, a dry cave and an underwater cave. I absolutely wanted to include Liangkabori, the dry cave, into this episode because it's an amazing cave. You can just go there. You pay very little. I want to say maybe like $2 per person, and you can walk through these caves where they have 4,000-year-old cave paintings. And they're not even like guarded in any way. You can literally just go there. If you wanted to, I think you could touch them, which I obviously do not encourage. But they are just right there, which is very intimate. It's also not a very busy place. And it is worth mentioning that I actually had wanted to go somewhere else because on Muna Island, so the same island as Liankabori, there are caves that have paintings that are over 60,000 years old. They are the oldest known human cave paintings on the planet. So they predate anything else that's been discovered around Europe, the Americas, anywhere on the planet. On Muna Island, the oldest human cave paintings. But they're not currently publicly accessible, and we simply did not have the time to request permission to shoot there. But that is remarkable, and that just shows how people have been attracted to, and life has been revolving around these caves in that area for tens of thousands of years, which is phenomenal. I mean, the underwater caves have also not always been submerged. There were questions about that, especially around the more decorated caves, such as Anoa in our last episode. And indeed, decorations can of course only grow when the cave is dry. For the decorations to grow, you basically need calcium-rich water dripping from the ceiling, so permeating through the rock, dripping from the ceiling and leaving tiny calcium deposits behind over thousands of years. And that's how you get stalactites. And then whatever is left and drips on the floor, if there is calcium deposits being left there, then you get stalagmites, so the ones who grow up. If they do this for long enough, eventually they might even meet and fuse together and you get columns. So obviously, once the sea levels rise and the caves are flooded, this process can no longer happen. That also means that anything that you touch and or destroy in an underwater cave has no chance of ever growing back, even though it took hundreds of thousands of years to grow in the first place. So that's a little thought. That was an often commented question under many of the videos. I paired the Liankabori cave visit with the Ode Panu cave. What's very interesting about this region as well, and you see that in the episode, is as we were driving, there were so many stalagmites and stalactites for sale along the roadside. And in the beginning, there were not many tourists, so I don't even know why I thought this, but I just assumed that it must be like a weird tourist ploy, right, to like try and sell souvenirs to tourists. But I was totally wrong. Apparently, a way of honoring the dead is by wrapping these stalagmites and stalactites in a piece of cloth and putting them on the graves. There is some peoples there who have a weird sort of idolation for stalactites and stalagmites. It's not in the episode, but there are even entire people groups who believe that stalagmites growing upwards, that they are petrified peoples who used to live in the caves. It's not something that I had a chance to include in the episode, but when I did a little bit of research, I found that, and I found that incredibly intriguing. Especially if you then combine that with the practice of putting these stones on the graves, it gives sort of an interesting view on how people are still somewhat gravitated to that whole cave environment. In La Ode Panu as well, there were some shards of pottery. They were not incredibly old, like probably not more than 100 years, which in absolute terms is almost negligible. But it again goes to show that people did use these water holes for hydration, that was always a source of fresh water for the people who lived there, that there was often community life and culture around those caves, which is amazing, right? To know that only in the last few years do we actually dive there, and are we able to check out the state of those caves. We did have some comments of people saying, why would you dive in freshwater sources, like the sources of people's drinking water? And I think the right answer is, well, why would you not, right? Diving is not at all a very polluting activity. It has very, very limited impact. but it does allow you to visually verify the state of the caves. And of course, I'm not a scientist, we are simply filming, but understanding the scope, understanding the connection, and how far-reaching the consequences could be of what affects a cave in one place, how that can also have far-reaching consequences to a connected cave in an entirely separate location, I think is huge. And so understanding those underground waterways is absolutely a good reason for cave diving. Laulawi is probably one of the coolest dives that I've ever done, in the sense that it was a scooter dive, and scooter cave dives, if you're properly trained, it's probably one of the funnest things you could ever do. Laulawi has been the subject of a study already. So Expedition Buteng, as mentioned in the episode, has been conducted about 2 years ago, and I think the furthest point they surveyed was about 5.2 kilometers from the entrance, which at that time made it the longest underwater cave in all of Southeast Asia. I did have someone who messaged me privately saying, hey, there's actually a longer cave in the Philippines. I don't have it verified, but obviously it's very likely that longer underwater caves will be discovered, especially in those karst-rich regions. But at least during its survey 2 years ago, Laulawi, with its 5.2 kilometers, was the longest definitely in the region, and from what I gather, in all of Southeast Asia. And it's amazing. It's pretty wide open in some areas. A lot of it actually have no overhead. I mean, it's obviously in a cave, but the water level doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. But of course, it's still a cave dive, because even though you can surface there, you cannot exit there. So you still have to make your way back to the entrance where you came from. And then some areas which are completely overhead, but are so massive that it was almost impossible to light it. We had a bit of a special setup there, where I had an Ace Pro 2 pointing forward, one pointing backward, and then two 10,000 lumens video lights shooting at the ceiling. Cha-Cha, our local cave guide, in front of me with a 20,000 lumens diffused on his scooter pointing forward. And with that, we were sort of able to get it done. Again, not to sound too salesy, but it is because the Ace Pro 2 is super light sensitive, which helps in those environments. People were asking why not use something like an X5, so a true 360 camera. And that's immediately also the reason, because I knew the cave was going to be very wide, and so the light simply doesn't go as far. Like, you have more space to light with limited light. If you're in a smaller tunnel, you obviously can light that a little easier. So I wanted the most light sensitive option, which is certainly the AP2 over the X5. So keep that in mind when you're if you're trying to, for instance, replicate a little bit of these types of dives. Another thing about the Laulawi cave, and I definitely need to give a little bit of props to Pete Measley, who he posted a picture, and so we've never met. It's a photo that I saw, and I always remembered of that cave, where is a little stalactite table that fell down, I assume, from the ceiling. So it looks like literally like a little table. And he had that so beautifully backlit with a diver in the background, and I just couldn't resist trying to recreate that. It is something that I commonly do when I know I only have one dive to make it happen. Why not look at reference material, right? Why not look at photos? Of course, try to not flat out steal people's ideas, and certainly don't take credit for them. I mentioned in the episode how this shot was original by Pete Measley, and then we try to somewhat recreate it. It's also different, right? We're doing video, not photo. We're on scooters. It's a completely different dive, but I like to do stuff like that, see if I can emulate someone's work, and of course I give them full credit for it. So let me know if you thought that recreation was a success. But super amazing dive, very long dive, and there is certainly something to say for scootering in overhead environments, right? I think it's pretty obvious that you should not go cave diving without cave training, but you should really also not go cave scootering without overhead DPV training. It is a very fast way to get into a lot of trouble very, very far, right? If you can go twice as fast or 3 times as fast with a scooter as you could by just finning, well, then you can get 2 to 3 times as far from the exit and 2 to 3 times as much into trouble. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. You also have to think about what happens when one of the scooters fails, right? One technique that I use, and that's the way that I've been trained, is to, on the way in, go less than half speed, right? If you go less than half speed, if nothing breaks, you still have that option of going out a bit faster, right? Slow in, fast out is definitely the way we want to cave dive. Let's say that something does break. Let's say that our buddy's scooter totally gives up, the battery dies, it gets flooded, whatever. We need to actually be able to tow 2 divers on one scooter, right? And that is going to reduce the performance by half. So if you, let's say, have 9 possible speed settings, going in at setting 4 will leave you setting 8 or 9 on the way back, but with 2 people would be the equivalent of setting number 4. So you're not going out slower than you came in. So that's one of the things, learning how to air share should it be necessary. Yes, we're on side mount. Yes, you may be on rebreathers, but heaven forbid you are in an air sharing situation. Can you still scooter while sharing air? Which, yes, you can, but again is a bit of a trick to it, right? A bit of technique to it, because you are now hooked to one another. So certainly the episode is not intended to encourage you to just grab scooters and go cave scootering, but it is certainly intended to encourage you to seek out that training if it interests you. It's a phenomenal way of exploring caves and covering a lot of ground in a relatively short amount of time, but keep it safe, of course. Our final episode in the Caves of Sulawesi series was Anoa. Anoa is what I was told the name of the cave, but it is simply named after the Anoa creature. So a little, let's call it a miniature buffalo. Not very tall. If you look in the video, I did some amazing special effects where you can see the Anoa standing next to me, more or less. And so what's cool about it, cool or interesting, is that the Anoa is endemic to Sulawesi, so you cannot find it anywhere else on the planet. I've been told that it's a monogamous animal, so it picks a partner for life, and there are only 5,000 Anoa left in the wild, mostly due to deforestation and urbanization, which we also mentioned in previous episodes, is certainly a thing that's also happening on Muna Island. The Anoa is simply overhunted and running out of space to reproduce, especially with its monogamous lifestyle, supposedly. The Anoa in the cave is not necessarily super old. There has not been any dating done yet, because again, it's a very recently discovered cave. I think no more than 2 years ago. So to get scientists out there and to do that, it would be it's not super easy. And of course, removing artifacts from the cave is not an option and is almost certainly illegal. That being said, it's a bit of a challenge of a dive, that one. We originally only had the limited amount of shooting days planned, but Chacha said, Nick, you are probably really going to like Anoa, so if you can do an extra day, do it. So I just condensed some travel days together, and we went and checked out Anoa. Not the easiest one to reach. It's about a half a kilometer hike in the jungle. Doesn't sound super far, but you kind of have to gear up by the truck and then with all the equipment get to the spot. Luckily we had Ronnie and Aki, our porters. They did a great job on every dive, but still you're in your dry suit, you're in your side mount gear, the camera, whatnot. So by the time you get to the cave, you're already pretty exhausted. And then it was a pretty steep climb. I did a bit of a nasty fall there, if you saw it in the episode. Luckily nobody got hurt. And then the dive itself is just mind-blowing. It's insane. I've seen many decorated caves, and that's, I think I mentioned it in other episodes. I like that. So I think it was in the La Paya episode where we dive underneath our own campground. I really enjoy a good cave that has like a bunch of stalactites, stalagmites, columns, you know, some flowstone, drapery, like nice geological evidence, if you will. And Anoa is that times 1,000. It's crazy. It felt a little bit like diving in a for lack of a better word, like in a porcelain store. Like, it was so delicate everywhere. We had to really take our time. It's not a very long cave. I think we probably didn't cover much more than 500 meters in and 500 meters out, so 1,500 feet or so. But you have to go so incredibly slow, because left, right, above you, below you, everywhere is pure fragility. And of course, it being only relatively recently discovered, and then it, you know, being isolated, and then it being on Muna Island, which is already generally not that very often visited, it just hasn't been dived all that much. And so there is no like you have in certain Mexican cenotes that are dived 500 times a day. You have this like sacrificial path, right? Like where the line runs is, yeah, unfortunately, more or less understood that in that exact spot not much is going to be left after a while. Anoa has none of that. Like, I don't even think that I saw a single broken stalagmite or stalactite. So it's super pure, and at some point around the 500 meter mark, it gets so incredibly dense that I even told Chacha, let's turn around. I have this really big camera on me, you know, with the lights sticking out. I feel like I'm no longer, if we push further, it becomes irresponsible, in not dive wise, but cave protection wise. And so we turned it when I thought it was sort of the furthest we could go and still be responsible about it. But then, and this is really cool, when we came back close to the entrance exit, there is a jump you can do, and on the other end of that jump line is then the remains of the Anoa. In fact, it's a little bit of a little cemetery. Like, there's definitely lots of bones, and I think it makes perfect sense, because if you saw how I entered the cave, not very glamorously, right, just slipped and fell right in the water. If I can do that, it's not hard to imagine that livestock absolutely could do that, right? The animals would come to, even if the cave was dry, right, just slipped and fell, or if there was a little bit of water in the cave, maybe looking for hydration, slipped, fell, and then either drowned, or if there was no water, probably ran around for a while and then just died. But yeah, again, that adds so much to a cave that's already so decorated, and then has these remains. And that was our final dive, right? And a little bit of an extra surprise dive that I didn't know at first that I was going to do. But to be honest, I think my favorite dive of the whole series, and already reached like 25,000 views after 2 days, which is, I think, unprecedentedly fast. So obviously still growing the channel, but those kind of numbers are super encouraging. In general, the Caves of Sulawesi series has been loved a lot. People were very enthusiastic. We did a live premiere as well of this final episode, and lots of people showed up there and interacted in the chat box, which I really like. And that's why this coming week on Thursday, an extra episode 8 if you will, diving into the filming of this series, right? Going to explain a little bit more how that all was done, the combination of Sony FX3 and of course Insta360 Ace Pro 2s as well. And the lighting, right? How do you light spaces like that? At the end of this week, I'm departing for Slovenia. I'm joining the guys from Nova Projects here in Belgium for an amazing expedition where I don't know how much I can share, but I'm of course joining to film, and so there will almost certainly, let's hope so, be a series about this project. But Slovenia is very rich in caves, and there are some caves that are not very explored. We have some very, very hard to get government permits, and there are some people that are more qualified than me are going to do some stuff that is very complicated, but luckily the DiveSAGA channel is going to be there to document it all. So we have that to look forward to, and if I can give you a little teaser, then that is it. So definitely, if you're not yet subscribed to the DiveSAGA channel, make sure to do that. As I mentioned before, I am working on a DiveSAGA Masterclass, which is an online course that you can take if you want to improve your own underwater filmmaking, and I will put a link below so you can express your interest with no commitment, but is great for me to gauge whether you might be interested or not. And in September and October this year, and January, February and March of 2027, I'm running instructor development courses again in the Caribbean. So I'm making a few guest performances there. I'll put a link as well if you're interested. If you want to become a scuba instructor and train the right way, then you can absolutely do that with me. It would be an honor to train some of you. I know some of you have expressed interest in that, so why not? That would be amazing. I do have one more episode coming up also in a few weeks here about the USS Kittiwake. I shot that a few months ago. I simply, due to the release windows of the Caves of Sulawesi episodes, have not been able to push it out yet. But so know that there is also an in-depth view at the USS Kittiwake coming out, and of course a few more scuba science episodes, because you guys love those as well. That's all I've got for you for this DiveSAGA Dive Debrief podcast. I hope you guys feel a little bit more updated again, and please make sure to subscribe to the DiveSAGA channel, to this podcast as well. That helps a lot, and to the DiveSAGA Instagram page. You should also consider reading In Depth magazine, because those guys always support us, so we should support them. Thank you guys for listening. Have an amazing week, and I will see you next time.